Okay, good. Welcome out, everybody. My name's Chasten. Welcome to the May AOCPMR Medical Student Council Education Committee event of this month. I'm excited to introduce our speaker, Dr. Holly Proffitt. Dr. Proffitt currently works as the Director of Clinical Immersion and Transitions at the University of Minnesota Medical School. She completed her education with a Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration, Marketing, and English Literature, and a Master of Arts in Journalism, Public Relations, and Communications, and then capped it off with a PhD in Higher Education Administration. She's worked with multiple medical schools to help get medical students to where they want to be through career advising and what we're all here to do tonight, CV development. And correct me if I'm wrong, thinking back to last year, you're an avid Arkansas Razorbacks college baseball fan.
Yes,
Um,
we're a little disappointed right now. But our women just made it to the World Series, so we're super excited about that. Yeah, big. Yeah, I think we were playing in a super or something like that the last time I did this. So yes, my brother's best friend from high school that I knew since they were like since little kids played for the Hogs. So we are big baseball fans. But I also went to Ole Miss. So we got some
oh,
loyalties there too. My sister did
okay.
undergrad there, and then my PhD was there. So yes, if I got any SEC folks in the room, you're in good company.
That's awesome. With that, I'll turn the time over to you, Dr. Profit. And then if for questions throughout, do you want people
Yeah,
to
go for it.
toss them in the chat and then we'll kind of get to them as they come in?
Yeah, for sure. I'll try to keep an
Okay,
eye on the chat. And if y'all want to raise your hands, it does not bother me to answer questions as you think of them. So feel free to raise your hand, and I'll try to keep an eye on everything as well. Um,
perfect.
Hopefully y'all didn't hear that knocking at the door of my younger twin. My mom usually helps me out, but she took a month-long vacation because she is now retired, and she is enjoying that. So we are a man down in our our child care team over here. Well, thank y'all so much for having me. I always enjoy doing these student group presentations because y'all are always so excited and nervous, and those are all valid emotions for these next steps in your medical education journey. And understanding a CV and what goes into it, and then how it's actually different from your ARIS application that will be opening up pretty soon for those of y'all that are going into your fourth year and will be applying to residency. All good things to know. And this is just kind of like a baseline understanding. And then if you have any more in-depth questions, I'm happy to answer those as well because I've been doing this for a minute. So, our goals and learning objectives. After this presentation, my hope is that you will be able to understand the use and importance of a CV in the medical profession. You'll be able to identify essential elements of a successfully constructed CV. You will be able to write meaningful content for a CV. You'll avoid common CV pitfalls. And you'll be able to distinguish between the content in a CV and your ARIS application because they are inherently different. All right. So there's three main purposes, if you ask me, of why we have a CV. One is to share. So sharing your experiences and sharing just things that you've done in general. It's a one to, however many page document that says, hey, this is my professional journey. It also can be used to inform someone. So when I write a letter of recommendation, as I'm sure many of your preceptors do, we like to see your CV so that we can write a more personal letter of recommendation. So, for example, when I write a letter, I may talk about, like, I wrote one for my intern for the Disney College program, and one thing I talked about was her confidence and her ability to work with medical students, which is often challenging because she was just an undergraduate student, but also how that confidence translated through being a vice president in her sorority or being able to be a leader in a volunteer organization. So I can take those criterion that I want to talk about and weave it through other experiences as well. So informing someone of your experience is different than just sharing. It allows them to have a deeper picture and connect those dots of how they know you in a place and time with the other things that they maybe don't know about you. And ideally, if done well, you can be a great first impression. So if you're at a conference or you're applying for your first job as an attending or a fellowship or something like that, or a scholarship, ideally we're looking at your CV and we're saying like, dang, this person's done a lot. And look at the continuity of how they've grown and how they've become more established in their career. So that's why it's important to understand the baseline of what needs to be in there and what doesn't, and make sure it's really tight and excellent, so that you can impress folks with it. And, because I know you don't want to be students forever, right? You want to eventually get a job. So that's the next step. All right. So, what's the anatomy of a CV? I like to do it this way because I know you're all physicians, and if y'all are future physicians, and if y'all want to get a good laugh, I'll tell you a short story that happened to me today. So, over the summer, my goal this year, since I turned 40 in January, is to run 4 half marathons. So, I ran one, and then I did a 50-mile relay 2 weeks ago in Key West with my cousin and my best friend from college. I'm running one in Chicago in September, and then I'm running the St. Jude half marathon in December. So anyway, I'm off training from half marathons right now, and my husband is a football coach, and so we are lifting together, and I'm trying to get stronger so I can get faster. Well, yesterday we were doing my maxes and I did bench, which I hadn't done in a million years, and I'm really hurting in like my anterior deltoid and stuff like that. And I was asking him, I said, where does your pec connect? Like, what's going on? I feel like it's somewhere in this brachial plexus area. And he was like, how do you know about the brachial plexus? You don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah, blah. So we had to ask Alexa about the brachial plexus. And I actually did know what it was. It was just a bundle of nerves. I couldn't explain it exactly right. But I said, you know what? I listen when my medical students talk about anatomy, and I've been in the anatomy lab. And so I just thought y'all would maybe get a laugh about that, especially since I can see it right here in this, what we're talking about. But I try to use things that are in your world. So we're talking about the anatomy of a CV, and that Holly does know a small part of anatomy, even though my husband took it in college and I did it. So what goes in the anatomy of your CV? There are a few things that are non-negotiables, that every single thing that should be in there. One is your education. And I am a firm believer that education should always go first, especially with y'all, because they need to see, right now you're in medical school, but where did you do your residency training? Where did you do fellowship? Or like, what other trainings do you have in education? I also am a big fan of honors and awards. And honorary and professional organizations, and those being your top three. So education first, and then if you want to do honorary and professional or honors and awards after that. But like really, I think that that is how people get the gist of are the first thing, are you qualified for this job based on your education? So in our world in higher education, we often have baseline educational requirements. Like you have to have a master's to do this job, or like you have to have a PhD preferred. And so when you see that first, you're like, okay, check box. Now we can go see about their other experiences. So big believer in those. And then these other ones down here, you can kind of mix match these how you want to. So some folks, if they're applying for research, they'll do research next. Or if you're applying for a teaching position, you'll do teaching next, or co-curricular volunteer. Does not matter. Your order after that is really dealer's choice and what you think is going to be most impressive for the reader and how they're going down the line. I have clinical experiences here because there are some clinical experiences that are appropriate. The ones that are not are like your clerkships. So you would not put like your OBGYN clerkship on your CV. That is an educational requirement. So like I took a career counseling course in my PhD. I would not put that as an experience on my CV. It's just something that I would talk about. If I did a career certification, like there's a resume, professional resume builder certification, that would go there, but like actual clinical experiences or coursework do not go on your CV. So I have an asterisk there for specifically that reason, and we'll go deeper into these specific categories. So, section best practices. So, always in reverse chronological order. So, if you are talking about where you are now, you would put no high school because y'all are all still young, and high school still is like very close for you, I'm sure, is 20 years for me. I don't want people to see high school, and it's unnecessary. So, what I have on mine is college at the bottom, then my master's, then my PhD. Okay, so that should be the same for y'all. Medical school, or sorry, college. If you did master's work, great. Medical school, and then when you match intern year, because actually your intern year is different than your residency sometimes, and then your residency, and then fellowship. So always reverse chronological order. Same thing with this. So your leadership experiences. So being in AOCPMR, if you had position just as a general member, and then you became the president would go above general member in that same section. So you always want your newest and then your oldest so they can see that growth chronologically. You want to have consistent formatting. This includes bolds, fonts, italics, spacing, capitalization. Don't care how you do it. I'm kind of a minimalist when it comes to all of this, but it just all needs to be the same. You don't need to be going crazy with your italics and your bolds and stuff like that. And I'll show you an example at the end. It needs to be thoughtful and detailed writing. So I was working on with a student today about her MSPE, And I talked to her and I was like, look, this is like good stuff, but it's really non-specific. Like, I need you to be thoughtful about what qualities are you trying to say about yourself? Like, are you trying to say that you demonstrated these qualities through service? Are you trying to demonstrate that your leadership abilities? Like, what specifically do you want to show here? And that's the same thing here. Like, if you say that you worked with various specialties as a scribe, y'all just put in the chat or shout it out. What number does various mean? How many could that possibly be? 4 plus 3? Yeah. So just from these two answers, right? We don't know. We don't know. What does various mean? What does several mean? What does, many mean? Just tell me. Just tell me that you worked with 4 different doctors, 4 different specialties, and list the specialties. So being specific and giving context is super important because you have to remember people are not going to give you the benefit of the doubt because they don't know. So like I always use my example because I work at the University of Minnesota. A lot of people have never been to Arkansas. And they're like, well, what's Arkansas like? If I sell myself short and like oh yeah, I'm just from Arkansas, we used to stay to 3 million people, whatever. No, I live in Northwest Arkansas. I have 250,000 people in my metro area here. Okay, that's smaller than a lot of places, but I used to live in Jonesboro, which was very different. It was a town of 70,000, and most people came from a 5 county radius, and that entire 5 county radius was like 150,000 people. Okay, so that context matters when people hear that I'm from Arkansas. I'm like, yes, I am from Arkansas, but I'm also from where Walmart is from and where Tyson is from and the second largest P&G office and things like that. And so you can't assume that people know the context of where you're from or what you've been doing. So the context and specific detail is super important. Next thing, delete sections you aren't using. So like if when you have a template, and by template, I don't mean like a Microsoft Word template. I mean like here is an example of one that you can use, and I'll give y'all one at the end. If you don't have research, then you delete research. You don't just leave it empty. If you don't have volunteer experience, then you leave it empty. It's just not, you just don't have that heading at all. Because you don't want it to be drawn attention to. Like ignorance is bliss. If they don't see research on there, then they don't see research on there. But if you have research and nothing's underneath it, they're like, oh wow, they don't have research. So it's just kind of common sense there, but you don't have to have something in every section if people feel like they do. Or that's how you set a goal and be like, look, I don't have any research. So that's something I want to do moving forward. And then I cannot express this enough how many times I've seen errors and have made errors in my own CV, and it's super embarrassing. Avoid errors. Read your overall content carefully. The appropriate verb tense, the appropriate like there, the appropriate use of apostrophes and punctuation. I know not everybody has an English degree like I do, but a lot of people care deeply about that and it looks sloppy. And they think to themselves, okay, if you can't pay enough attention on this and this important document that you're going to see, then you can't pay attention to the things that I need to. I heard it once said from a colleague of mine, people are looking for a reason to say yes and people are looking for a reason to say no. Don't give them a reason to say no. And sloppy stuff like that is a reason to say no. Okay, not trying to scare you. Okay, so here are the things that need to go here. We kind of already talked about education, but your most recent education first. I really am a fan of listing dates completed rather than dates you intended unless you didn't graduate. So like on my CV, it doesn't matter that I went to college from 2005 to 2009. Nobody cares. They only care when I graduated, when that degree was conferred, and how we go from there. I also and not anymore because like I said, I'm almost 40. I used to be a little age biased. Like, I felt like people discriminated against me sometimes because of my age, that they didn't feel like I had enough experience. So I used to not have my dates from my graduation from college or master's or PhD or whatever on my CV because they didn't want people to do the math of how old I was and be like, oh, she's only 25. She can't do this because she's only 25. Up to you. Probably different as a physician because we know people sometimes go straight from undergrad to medical school, whatever. But that just a caution there. You don't have to put them. You do need to put them for your jobs so people know when you were there, but that's up to you on whether you want to put degree conferment dates. But the bigger takeaway is like you don't have to put the years that you were in medical school or the years that you were in college or whatever. Honors and awards, these are merit-based honors only. Okay, so when I worked at NYIT Com, we had a Delta Leader Scholarship. Everybody got it. Okay. It was a tuition discount. It was not a scholarship. And so it was a scholarship, but it wasn't a merit-based scholarship. So you don't put things on there that everybody gets. You only put ones on that you earned or that were selective or what have you. But this can also include honors and high pass in your clerkships. So this is different than putting your clinical experiences. This is an award that you received in, your actual clerkship. So you can put like OBGYN clerkship, high pass, pediatrics, honors, whatever you want to do. And I do recommend that you put like spring or January or whatever in the year that you did it. Honoring professional organizations, this is something I see a lot that students get confused about. These are national organizations only in this section. So when we talk about co-curricular and volunteer, you will have a place to do your local ones. But this is like, I'm part of Phi Kappa Phi. And so I have Phi Kappa Phi, but I don't have University of Mississippi chapter. I just have the national organization. Or like, I'm a part of the American Association of Medical Colleges, the AAMC. I don't put my affinity group down there, the Central Group on Academic Affairs. I only put the American Association of American Medical Colleges. I can never remember which A goes first. So like my husband, for example, would put Arkansas Football Coaches Association, ARFCA. And then like if he was part of a group here in Northwest Arkansas, that would be different. So you always want to do that and you want to spell out. And we're going to play another game. Tell me what AOA means. When you hear AOA, what do you think? Okay, American Osteopathic Association, correct. American, okay. Oh man, y'all are all on the same page. What about in the MD world? We have Alpha Omega Alpha. That's the honorary society where y'all have Sigma Sigma Phi in the osteopathic world. What about the American Orthopedics Association? What about when I say ADA? What could ADA be? Yeah, Derm, American Dermatology Association. How about the American Dental Association? How about the Americans with Disabilities Act? You see what I'm throwing down here? That's why we spell it out. So you spell it out and then you can put it in parentheses. And then if you talk about it again, you've already said what the abbreviation is. And so you can do it again. But that's the point, is that don't assume that people know what things mean. And I remember in the osteopathic world, it was like AOCPMR. I had to be like, okay, American Osteopathic. Like people don't always know what those abbreviations mean. I got better at it, but definitely in the medical education world, like we love our acronyms and people don't know what they mean. So make sure you spell everything out. Okie dokie. So these are just examples so you can see how the other sections look. So this is actually my PhD research that I did for my dissertation. And so you can see here's the research heading, here's the institution. It was through the Department of Education. Here are or higher education. Here are my dates. Here's my title. Here's my mentor, and here's my project title. And see how I was really specific. And then I said, I conducted survey research. So I talked about what specific research I did and what I did in the research to analyze correlations between career decision-making self-efficacy of women in medical school compared to their male peers. If I was going to have another bullet under there, which I do recommend 3 to 5 bullets, I would say, analyze survey results for multiple analysis of variance for 325 survey respondents or whatever. That's where that context matters. So this is where it's important that you're using the specificity and an action verb to say what you did instead of just like did research. Okay. Should we keep national orgs that we were in but may not be active in anymore? That's up to you. When you do your ARIS, you're only going to have so much space. So I don't recommend it for ARIS. It's up to you if you want to talk about it. So if you don't want to talk about it, I would not put it on there. And that's different than a lie of omission. Okay. Like say you wanted to be a pediatrician and now you want to do PM&R. Keep it on there or don't. I don't care. Like that's not a super like thing that's going to sink you. But if you wanted to put it on there and you were willing to talk about how you treated, like change specialties from pediatrics to PM&R, perfect. Totally fine. Up to you on how you do that on a CV. Especially if it's not active, it really doesn't matter. Total preference. Professional years you were in part of the organizations? No, not in that part. When we get to career or co-curricular and volunteer, yes, you'll put it there. But in this section, which was honoring professional, you just list it. You don't put the years that you were in it. Great questions. Okay, here's teaching and tutoring. So these were all my real jobs. So you can see all the things that I used to do. So this is when I was a graduate student. I was a graduate assistant, and you can see here assisted 3 professors. So not just various professors or some professors. I assisted 3 professors. Proctored exams for students with accommodations and scheduled makeup exams. The reason I did that is that I want them to know that I understand about accommodations. I understand about IEPs and 504 plans and all that kind of stuff. And then I also told you specifically what courses I taught. So this is an example of like, here's 3 things that I did, and here are the specific things that I did with them. And you can see my formatting is consistent of like, this is bolded as the institution and the department and where it was. Here are my dates. Here's my title. All consistent throughout. So like I said, I don't care how you do it. It just needs to be consistent throughout. You don't want it to be too busy. Okay, so here's university. I made these up. I did not go to the University of Minnesota Medical School. I work there, but I use this as an example. President, again, all the same in that formatting. President, class of 2027. And so this is, again, those specific details. What are the things that you did? I say 3 to 5 bullets. People will fight me on that, and I'm okay with that as long as it's relevant content. If you're just putting stuff to put stuff, not here for it, because people don't want to read a super long CV. Try to be succinct, but if you need more, that's totally fine. And then skills and certifications here. People typically put this at the bottom, and I'm okay with that. And people will say like, well, don't people know we're BLS certified? Yes, they should. However, when you are applying for a job, not residency, but applying for a job, a lot of hospitals or corporations and places like that use AI software that looks for keywords. And if it says that you need to be BLS, ACLS certified, and you don't have that on your CV, it'll kick you out. So that's why I encourage people to put that in their skills and certifications on their CV if it's part of the requirement for the job. The other thing about skills and certifications that I see a lot of that I have to tell people, a skill and certification is something that you can prove. Okay. I can't prove that I'm a hard worker. I can't prove that I am quick to think on my feet. I could, but not in the same way that I can prove that I can speak basic Spanish or that I'm ACLS certified. So remember that skills and certifications are things that you can prove and that are relevant specifically to the job. I have a twin crying outside my room. So what are things that are not on the CV? Academic courses, like we said, things you can't prove, errors. We really don't want errors to be on the CV, lack of context, non-specific language, first person narrative. So this is the difference between errors, and we'll get more to that in a second. Sometimes people will write first person narrative on errors. I'm not a fan of that, but you can. And narrative paragraphs, which in errors we actually do recommend narrative paragraphs. So here are things that should not be there. And here are the similarities and differences with errors. Similarities are that you want to use specific details, you want to be precise, and you want to use objective descriptions. The differences for errors versus a CV are that you're going to give additional context of what you did. So in errors, it'll say, or residency CAS, or whatever the million things are that y'all apply through these days. You will have a choice to pick between like what quality were you demonstrating? What environment was this in? Was this urban or rural or what have you? So that is important to note that you'll give additional context there. You'll also be limited to a number of experiences on your CV. You can have as many as you want because it's free form, right? But in AIRS, you can only have 10, and you get to say which ones are the most meaningful, which is the next bullet there, and you get 3 of those. And then, like I said, the determination of type and qualities. So you have to be ready to say, like, what am I trying to show a program with what this looks like? So a CV can set you up well for what you're going to do in AIRS, but it's not a copy paste. It's a completely different way that we do that. And so it's important to know that that it's going to be a different thought process when you're doing all of that. Okay, so here's this is a PDF. They do this every year with the ARIS worksheet, but I just wanted you to see what that looks like. And it is totally possible. I know that for a fact that they change it for this year, but they don't have the worksheet out yet because it comes out in June. So this is just how you can see how it looks. So you'll have the organization and you'll type that in there. You'll type in the experience type, the position title, if you're currently doing it, start and end date. And then you can see the content roles and responsibilities. This is where you will write typically in a narrative paragraph form, objectively what you did rather than bullets. I also recommend here that you give context. So the example I used last year was Jack's Basket. So I volunteer for an organization called Jack's Basket, which delivers baskets to families who have received a Down syndrome diagnosis, whether it is at birth or prenatally. My twins have Down syndrome, so I love volunteering for this organization and telling parents like, hey, it's going to be okay. Like, this is awesome. So I'm a packed basket delivery parent, but I'm also a regional lead parent, which means that I work with physicians to let them know about the organization, but also get them continuing medical education so that they can learn how to deliver a diagnosis without bias. And so I would give context here of like Jack's Basket is a 501(c) nonprofit organization that promotes, Down syndrome diagnoses without bias and congratulating every baby born. So you can literally rip that from their website. I made that one up. It's probably pretty similar, but I made it up. But you can go to an organization's website and rip their mission from their website and put it there. Because before today, you may not have known what Jack's Basket was. And so it's important, again, people are not going to give you the benefit of the doubt. you need to have that context there in this 750 characters, which you would not do on your CV. So that's the main difference, is just thinking about how you're going to write it and like, what do I want people to get from this? All right, sorry. I talk really quickly. Fun fact about me, when I was at NYT the students loved me because they never had to watch me at 1.5 speed because I talk so quickly anyway. But the good news for you is I've only taken 27 minutes. So you can either be done early or you can ask lots of questions. So happy to answer any questions that y'all have or any other specific thoughts. That's what I'm here for. Let me have them.
There was a pre-submitted question that said, in general, are there any recommendations that you have regarding what to not put on your CV? I know that you talked a little bit about the certifications or different honors and awards, but
Sure.
is there anything in like professional experiences or in your
Yeah.
education that you wouldn't include?
Don't put anything you don't want to talk about. So like if you got fired from a job, you better be ready to talk about it. And I'm not saying omit things on purpose. Like you need to be truthful and honest, but you need to be prepared to talk about what happened there. And like what did you learn from it? How did you grow from it? Like my husband, when he was in college, got fired from Applebee's and like he still like laments about that. And I'm like, bro, what did you learn? Like you're married to a career counselor. Like, what did you learn? What you're gonna put it, it doesn't matter anymore. He's been a football coach for 17 years. He doesn't need to put Applebee's on his CV anymore. But if he was still trying to be a server, he may need to be able to show that experience and be able to talk about it. So, yes, the things I said, but also like don't put things on there that you're not willing to discuss, or you need to be prepared to discuss them in an appropriate manner. Do you think how do you feel about hobbies, interests on your CV? From a business perspective, when I was doing more like corporate stuff, I would say no, but I do know it's a point of conversation for a lot of folks. And so I would say, but list them. Like, so mine would be like running, reading, and cooking. Because you don't want to have like a full description of like, I'm training for half marathons, blah, 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 blah. You want it to be someone says, "Oh, well, what kind of running do you like to do?" "Oh, I'm training for a half marathon." "Oh, what half marathons are you doing?" Like it's supposed to be an appetizer for further conversation. So I'm totally fine with it. Just list them rather than having like a long explanation. Can we include merit-based rewards from undergrad? Absolutely. You absolutely can. I've got ones from graduate school. I've got ones from other phases of my life. You absolutely can. But again, be ready to talk about it. And if you can't remember what you did, then maybe that's not something worth putting. My God, why is my husband not coming to get this child from my door? Um, we would organize sections by what we want to highlight, example, extracurriculars. Yes, absolutely. It's completely up to you on what sections you want to do first based on what you want the reader to see. And so if you were going to look at a CV, like I have my academic CV, and then I have like if I wanted to call like my work CV, like if I was trying to go back into business or consulting or something like that. So it's absolutely appropriate to have multiple versions of your CV depending on what you're applying to. So like when y'all get out of residency, if you're applying for academic center jobs versus if you're applying for like community hospital generalist jobs, we're going to be in hospitalists. Those would be very different things that you would probably highlight there and what you did your residency. So it's totally okay to have different versions of your CV. For clinical sections, if we do audition rotations, no, no, absolutely not. No, those are things you talk about. That's coursework. That is not something you list. That's an expectation of your specialty. There are ways to drop that in other ways, but I do not recommend it to be on the CV or your ARIS application.
There was also another pre-submitted question. You kind of covered the chronological or reverse chronological order of things, but they also asked if they have a lot of like non-PM&R research, if that can be listed in a different way
Absolutely.
to kind of highlight that better.
Yeah. I don't know that it has to be listed differently. I would put it under research experience. And then if it's older research that like obviously the PM&R research would rise to the top if it's more recent. But no, I think it's totally fine. I get that question all the time. They don't care what your research is in, they care that you know how to do it. And so it's more important to highlight the skills that you did of like if you were doing bench research versus survey research versus, clinical trials or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's more about the context of the work that you did than the content of what you did. It's about knowing how to do all that stuff. Yeah, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Thanks for presenting. In terms of research presentations, how do you recommend ordering them chronologically if, say, we've presented a poster at two conferences and then those dates are kind of like overlap with another poster we've presented at a different conference?
Yeah, chronologically always, regardless of presentation. I'm trying to find my CV for y'all so I can show you. Um, just a second, I'm gonna get this pulled up so you can see the conference presentations and what all that section looks like. So I am a little nitpicky about this. It is really important that you have them in the right format. So I see this a lot with medical students that they've just kind of like thrown them up there. And so here's my education, and you can see that I've got the projects that I did there, honor and professional organizations, honors and awards, higher education experience. This is my work experience. That's all fine. Y'all really don't care about that. But here is scholarly activity. So I've got presentations and publications broken up into two different areas. You don't have to do that. But since I have a couple publications, I do have that there. Whereas because presentations are a little bit easier to get than publications. And so if you wanted to put publications first versus presentations, totally fine. I also have other research here, and the only reason I have this, and I don't necessarily recommend that y'all do this, is that, but I did because I was trying to prove that I do publish and I do know how to do research. This is my undergraduate or my master's thesis. And the only reason I have that there is because I specifically talk about it up here. So that's completely up to you. But this is all in APA format. So I recommend that you look up. APA is kind of the easier one, but some people will do American bibliographical formatting. But APA is typically what you're using in research and publications. So I recommend that you do it in that way. And you can see that these are all in chronological order, depending on when the last time it was. Um, yeah, so this was September 2025, 2021, 2021, 2021. Man, I did a lot in 2021. You can see I got a new job and had a baby in that time. So I was a little busy. But you can see that these kind of all, you want to see the growth in presentations and publications as well.
What if for that, if we've presented a poster at two different conferences, would we list it twice?
Yep, absolutely, because they're
Okay.
two different things. Do you have any advice about including leadership experience in an org from a different specialty since this may, yeah, absolutely. It doesn't matter. Just be able to talk about why it was important. And what did you learn? Because they don't really care, like if it was in pediatrics or OBGYN or PM&R or whatever. It's more about the skills that you demonstrated to be successful there. And you can, that's part of a thoughtful answer of being like, yeah, I was a part of that. And during that time, I realized that like I actually like PM&R more or what have you. So that's totally fine. Where I put my dissertation? I would do it under research experience. So here's the difference between research experience and presentations and publications. I don't have a research experience section in my CV because it actually doesn't matter for me. Being a PhD, they know I know how to do research because that's literally part of our degree is that we have to do a dissertation. But for y'all, you can have a research experience section where you talk about the research and then you have presentations and publications, which is different. And so presentations and publications are what came from the research. And y'all should know if you're doing research, not every project turns into a presentation or publication, sadly. And so it's okay to have research experience where you talk about the actual skills that you did and then have the presentations and publications so they can see what came from it. Like I said, I don't have that for my dissertation or my master's thesis because it doesn't really matter for my profession, but it might for yours. And so that's completely up to you on how you decide to do that. And I have a CV template that on Google I was going to share with y'all so you could have it, but I need to find the tab that I had open. My youngest child, was on my computer to FaceTime my mom before this. So Lord knows what happened to that tab. So we will just go find it. Oh, there it is. Okay. Any other questions while I search for this?
Go ahead, Brock.
Thank you.
Yeah, mine was just based off of your last comment. You mentioned that we could have a research experience section as well as a publications and presentation section.
Yep.
Are we, I don't know if the word double dip is the correct one, but are we allowed to, if I had a research experience that also had a presentation, am I allowed to include both of
Absolutely.
those in
Yeah.
both sections? Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because they're different, right? So the
Yeah,
research experience is what you actually did, and then the presentations or publications are what came from it. So absolutely.
cool.
You should.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I see a hand. Please forgive me. I probably will not say your name right. Sathya?
Yeah.
Yay.
Um,
Okay, go
I just
ahead.
figured it would be easier to ask this in
Yes,
type, but
absolutely.
along the lines of the dissertation question,
Mhm.
um, I have a dissertation project that was part of my undergraduate degree. And like you said, that really didn't amount to like a publication or anything like that, but
Hmm.
it's relevant to PM&R. So I'd like
Hmm.
to kind of pull that in to kind of show that I kind of had early interest in the field. But do
Yep.
you think that would kind of be interpreted as like, I don't know, me not following through on the research or like it
No,
not
no.
amounting to
No,
anything?
no,
Okay.
totally fine. Because anybody who's done research knows sometimes it doesn't turn out, right? So like
Okay,
my
perfect.
master's thesis, we tried to submit it for presentation and publication, didn't get accepted. Oh well, I learned from it. So totally okay. And I think you demonstrated something really important there. You know why you want it to be there. So if someone asks you about it, you could say why. You could say, yeah, I just wanted, so no, it didn't turn into a presentation or publication, but here's what I learned and this is what we did. And it really solidified very early on that I wanted to go into PM&R. So everything's a story. It's just a matter of how you craft it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I did put the CV template in the chat, so y'all feel free to use that, download it, whatever. It's very simple. It does not have boxes or tables or anything like it's just good old tab. And I don't even mess with margins. It's just easy going. So that's my recommendation because it's a lot easier to edit. So please feel free to use that as you need to. And then I'll also download this presentation and send it to Chasen so y'all have that as an example as well. Any other questions? And I'll put my email in chat too, just in case y'all have any other questions as well. You can always email me. You're welcome. Truly my pleasure. Sorry you got me all casual. I was trying to decide if I was going to run today or not, and I just haven't gotten around to it. So I like maybe if I stay in my workout clothes, then I'll commit to going to run on my treadmill after this. So y'all can wish me luck for that. Truly my
Awesome.
pleasure. Please feel free, email me, let me know if you need anything else. And I also love to hear where y'all end up. So please feel free to be like, hey, I'm HPMR, all that. I love to celebrate y'all, even if it's from afar. So yeah, thanks for having me and let me know if you need anything else.